If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
What's up, everybody? Mike Heck here, and I wanted to jump on and answer a question I've been getting quite a bit over the last few months. That question is, how do you book interviews? How did you book this fighter? How did you book that fighter? And whatever way you may have asked this question, it all sort of goes back to the same answers, in my opinion. Now, for those who don't know, I began this MMA interview road that I'm on about 4 years ago. And when I made the decision to focus primarily on interviewing people around the sport of mixed martial arts, whether it be the fighters or media members or managers or certain individuals around the game, I had to come up with a game plan on how I wanted to do this, because no matter when you start, you're new to the game, and there's a lot of people out there that have been doing this for a long time, even for a decade plus. And I had interviewed a handful of fighters past and present prior to making that decision, but if you're just getting started in this world, here's sort of what I did to get the ball rolling. I'll start this off by saying that the most important piece of advice that I can give you, especially if you're just getting started out, is interview everybody. These days, I still live by that for the most part. If a regional promotion or a PR rep or a manager reaches out to you about a regional fighter, say yes and interview them like you're interviewing Conor McGregor or John Jones or Nate Diaz or any of the big stars of the sport. You got to get your reps in. Are they all going to be grand slams? Probably not, but sometimes you get absolute gold. And on top of that, if that fighter that you interviewed early on makes it to the UFC or makes it to Bellator or has a huge fight coming up, guess who he or she is going to remember? That media dude or dudette that gave him a chance early on in their career. Growing up, I was a huge Wade Boggs fan. Wade Boggs played for the Red Sox, played for the Yankees, played for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays back in the day before he became a Hall of Famer. And Wade Boggs wasn't a guy who hit a bunch of home runs. Wade Boggs is a guy who hit singles and doubles all the time, won batting titles all the time, never led the league in home runs, never led the league in RBIs, but always led the league in doubles, always led the league in batting average. This is a guy that just kept getting base hits. And he was very influential. You don't have to hit 35 home runs every single season. You don't have to interview Conor McGregor every single time. Get the reps in, because you want to be able to interview anybody at any time. You never know who you may run into wherever you may be at. Or if something pops up last minute, someone reaches out to you and be like, perfect example. A few years back, MMA was about to be legalized in New York. So I reached out to Chris Weidman's team at the time. And I said, hey, I'm this guy who has this podcast, and if Chris is available, I know he's doing a lot to try to get this sport legalized in New York, and we're getting really close here. Do you think he'd have time to have a conversation? His management team reached out to me like 2 seconds later and said, can you talk to him now? I did it, and it worked out great for me. So get better, interview as many people as possible, and stay ready, because you never know what might happen. The second tidbit I can give is, and this is just like if you're in the sales world or have ever been in the sales world, I'm sure you've heard this term, utilize the law of averages. I set a goal for myself when I got rolling that I would email, message, or hit up in some kind of way 30 fighters, PR reps, or management teams every week. 30 to try to get fighters on my podcast. I did a lot of this on social media, Facebook Messenger, messaging on Twitter, Google searching the fighter's name with websites, fighter name website, fighter name manager. And I hustled. Did I bat 1,000 and book 30 interviews every week? No, of course I didn't. Did I have some weeks where I booked 10 to 15 of those interviews? I sure did. Did I have some weeks where I booked 1 or 2? Yep, I did that as well. But if you don't play the numbers game, then you're gonna sit there wondering what you're gonna do, and you might just give up. And if you really wanna do this, you gotta strap in, because it's gonna be a long, bumpy road for a while, but you have to start somewhere. Law of averages, people. Another thing to remember, and I think this goes hand in hand with a lot of this stuff, is stay organized and do what you say you're gonna do. Like I have made mistakes, I'll admit that. I've forgotten interviews early on. I forgot what time interviews happen early on. But this is a game of building relationships. If you can prove to fighters, and especially managers and PR reps, that you can be reliable, then the opportunities will continue to come your way. There are weeks where I go crazy trying to book X amount of fighters. And then there's weeks where I'll get hit up by 2 or 3 different managers with a bunch of fighters they want me to interview. And those are the best. Those are the best weeks. But it didn't happen overnight, that's for sure. You got to build those relationships. You got to prove you're reliable. And the last thing I'll mention is to keep your expectations somewhat realistic. Listen, if you think Conor McGregor is coming on your podcast right now, it's probably not going to happen. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't shoot your shot. You know what I mean? Like, if you want a surging contender in the UFC that's on a really nice run, that's on the cusp of title shot to come on your show or to come on your video podcast to do an interview, reach out and try and get it. I mean, I've heard it all at this point. No, can't do it, not available. You're not a big enough outlet. I've gotten that more times than I'd like to admit. I've gotten a ton of no responses in my day as well. But if you continue to stay consistent, you continue to deliver quality work, and in my opinion, if you continue to make fighters who come on your show feel comfortable and have a good time, word will spread, my friends. It will. I'm not kidding you. So early on when I was getting started, that's pretty much how I did it. This is more of the Cliff Notes version, but I hope that answers your question in some way. If you have other questions in regards to these types of things, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I'll be happy to address them. I could do another video on it or multiple videos. I have no problem with that. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone who tells you that covering the sport is easy and it's glamorous early on, they're lying to you. I'm here to tell you the truth. It's gonna be rough early on. It just is. But if you stick with it, you have passion for it, you deliver, you bust your ass to get better every single day, it'll pay off. It'll pay off. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this page, or you could do so at youtube.com/Mike Heck MMA. That was a heck of a question.